Welcome to another episode of Commercial Property Roadshow. You're here with Helen Tarrant, and today I'm actually going to talk you through the buying process of commercial property. So the buy and sell process is obviously very different. If you are a seller, you would engage an agent and they would do an advertising package including online and offline marketing, and of course they start canvassing together information memorandum. Now if you were someone buying a property, now I'm talking about after you've done your due diligence, after you've done some preliminary research on the property, you're about to make an offer. What happens after the offer process? And so what happens after the offer process is that, and each state is different. So New South Wales, let's start with New South Wales. If you're buying in Sydney, for example, there's actually no cooling off period in the contract. It's a 42-day contract. So what that means is it's unconditional from the day you sign it, and you have to settle within 6 weeks. Now, if you were wanting due diligence, if you're wanting finance, you have to do that all before you sign an exchange contract. And literally, it's about who signs the contract first, exchanges it, who gets the property, because it's a very, very competitive market. So if you're a first-time purchaser in the commercial property space, Sydney is not your market to try to get into because it's very, very competitive. The yields are much lower, and you really have to have your finance in place and really do your due diligence as fast as possible. So if we're helping our client buying in Sydney, well, you should try to turn everything around within about 2 days. That's for investor property, because anything that's good will go in the market. Now, if you are buying in Melbourne, it is very similar to Sydney, except they will allow for things like pest and building or a strata search, or maybe 7 days as a finance clause for you to get a valuation. So that helps in that process, and you can nominate whether you settle in 30 or 60 days, or even longer depending on the property. Now, if you're in regional Victoria and regional New South Wales, that's where things start to get a little bit more interesting. Now you can start putting in clauses like due diligence, clauses like finance in there, probably pest and building report in there, so that you have a property that's, you can take the property off the market that is conditional based on you doing those research. Now, if you were starting out, you want to make sure you actually get into a property that has and allows you the time for you to get your finance in place and make sure you are not rushing the due diligence process. So it gives you plenty of time to be able to do a pest and building report, check out the roofs, talk about your tenants with the right agent, but also to other people around there. So you might want to do an inspection. So if you're doing an inspection, you might talk to the tenants, you might want to talk to people around there, you might want to go over and stay there a couple of nights and check it out. So you want to make sure you have that already built into the contract. Now, if you are buying in Queensland, now Queensland is the most friendly for commercial property investors. So if you're doing first-time purchase, then Queensland is your first and best time to get started. They're very, very good with land tax thresholds. So you don't have the same land tax threshold as you have in Victoria and New South Wales. So it's very generous for you to get started, and it allows for, the contract naturally allows for due diligence and finance clause and a settlement time for you to nominate, so you can create more time for yourself, more leeway, so you're not rushed through the process. However, with Queensland, the one thing you've got to remember is that the contract is only about 22 pages or 24 pages, so the onus is on you to do all the searches. So if you want to do a strata search, you need to do it yourself. If you want to do a pest and building search, you want to do a flood search, you want to check on the zoning, you want to do the building classification, all of those things you have to do yourself. So it becomes a more expensive process, and the onus is on you to make sure that your solicitor is actually doing those searches. So you need to make a list of the searches, list of things that you are worried about, and get those things looked at. So the onus is on you. Whereas in New South Wales and Victoria, they do a lot of the searches for you, and it's already attached to the contract, so there's less for you to search, so it reduces your due diligence time as well through that. So that's the real key difference. Now, where you buy really depends, remember, I come back to it about the returns and the yields. And just to make this extra clear, I'm going to show you on a whiteboard how the process works, so that you know when the finance comes through, when the due diligence, when you need to settle on the property so you can start reaping the cash flow, and when the property needs to be managed as well. So let's go over and I'll draw this out for you. Welcome. We're here to show you what your purchasing journey should look like in commercial property. I know I talked a little bit about your journey before, about how you should get into commercial property, how the different states are a little bit different. Now I'm going to spell it out to you on the whiteboard so it becomes nice and clear. So in New South Wales, what happens is that South Wales, you have 42 days. It's unconditional.
from exchange, which means you do your DD, which is what I call due diligence, plus finance before exchange. Now that could make it really hard, especially when you're in Sydney. There's a lot of competition. When you're in regional New South Wales, you can add due diligence plus finance. Usually that period is somewhere between 14 to 21 days. So it's still a tight turnaround for you to get your finance approval and your due diligence done, but it's much better than not having it. And then normally settlement is 42 days after. Now, if you're in Victoria, regional Victoria behaves very similarly to regional New South Wales, which means you can add due diligence and finance as part of it. And your settlement can be 42 days or it can be anywhere from 6 up to 60 days. That is in regional Victoria. Now, if you're in Melbourne, as in buying Melbourne Metro, what you're going to find is that you might get 7 days finance or due diligence. And that might be a valuation or a strata search. So you might find that these are the property, these are actually the conditions you can actually put on this property deal. And then settlement is, of course, anywhere from 30 to 60, so 60 to 90 days. Now, if you were in Queensland, now Queensland has the best and most friendly for new investors. So best for new investors. And the reason we talk about that being best for new investors is this. Is that you allow for due diligence plus finance, and it's normally 21 days or 30 days or up to 30 days. So it gives you a lot of time to get into the property, really understand it, go and do an inspection, do your due diligence, get your finance evaluation done. Plus settlement of 30 days. Now I find if you push settlement out for any longer than 30 days, most vendors wouldn't like it. Most vendors actually prefer you to have it 21 days. In a really tight market, you want to keep it a 21 days finance and due diligence, 21 days settlement. So that actually makes it the easiest. Also, Queensland has a generous land tax threshold, which means that you can actually buy lots more properties before you have to pay land tax. So that's really good to start. So how your journey would work is here would be your offer. Sorry, that keeps doing that. Offer, you have acceptance, you have contract with your terms there. And then once you're on the contract, you pay deposit, you do pest and building, or strata, depends which one you are. You get evaluation done. You do inspection if you need to inspect the property, if you haven't inspected beforehand. You do tenant DD. So I do all the stuff regarding whether the tenant's been paying rent on time. I look at how long their business has been operational for. I look at how long they've been in the premise and whether their industry is expanding or whether their industry is contracting. From there, I want to find out more information regarding insurance and outgoings. So I want to verify them. So I'm going to verify the outgoings and the insurance to make sure they stack up. And then what that happens, what that equates to is whether your net yield actually stacks up to what you offered before previously, whether your tenant is going to have longevity, whether your tenant's been there for a long time, whether they've got specialist equipment in there, and whether your outs need has been verified. And then valuation, matching contract price, matching contract price. Once you get those 4 things ticked off, so those 4 things ticked off, then what happens here is we go to settlement. So effectively, in 21 days, you do from here to here to here to here, or 21 days. And then settlement, you basically have documents to sign, accounts to set up, and you pay the balance of any deposit. And that's what happens. Then you have 21 days or 30 days to settle, depending on what conditions you have. So that's usually the journey. And when we take people through sourcing, we take them through this journey. We go a little bit more in depth in each of every one section, and we debrief with them through the process. So again, if you want to find out more, make sure you join us for a personalized strategy call to find out how this will work for you. But in each and every state, no matter what contract whether you're doing it unconditionally from day one or whether you're subject to financial due diligence, we still go through this process, because even if you have an unconditional contract, you want to verify your tenants. You want to make sure everything's good, because it's all about going into things eyes wide open.
So I hope that made a lot of sense about what your journey is now to look like in terms of getting your first commercial property. You know, I'm always here to help you through that process, and really the first property is really key in your portfolio. So the best way to really understand what is right for you is to book in a call with me. Go to helentarrant.com, contact us page, reach out to me, and I'm happy to take you through your personalized strategy. But even in the meantime, you need education, you can find it on helentarrant.com, or subscribe and hit the bell, and there'll be more interesting topics coming up in my YouTube channel. Bye for now.